All right. Welcome back, everybody. Thank you for everybody who has stuck around this long to watch our day-long telethon supporting Hollywood Food Coalition at trektalks.net. And it is my pleasure, it's my honor to welcome somebody to the show who you may have heard through the Trek Files or Mission Log, and you may very well have seen his documentary For the Love of Spock. It's Adam Nimoy. Adam, welcome. Absolute pleasure to have you here. Really appreciate your time today. So I want to jump into something that you touched on in the Trek Files, and I found so heartwarming. I was sort of sitting on the other side of the mic, just listening to you and Larry chat, and there was a moment that you described that it was the summer of 1966, before Star Trek went on the air. So nobody had seen this show yet, and you got to go visit your father on the set. So this is before anybody had seen anything. And they put you in the fake ears, and you got to go visit that day. And I just want to hear a taste of that sort of very visceral experience of being there on that day.
Well, first of all, John, I just want to say thank you for inviting me to come on and join you on a so worthy a cause as the Hollywood Food Coalition. Yeah, the day I was on the set, I mean, I was on the set a few times that summer in particular, but on the day I was on the set, when they pulled me off behind the scenes and took me into Fred Phillips' makeup chair. Fred was the makeup artist who did all the work on creating Spock, including the ears, the whole ear saga of how they were able to produce that. It was really Fred Phillips who made all that happen. He cut my hair, he shaved my eyebrows, and he stuck on a pair of oversized ears for me. I mean, I remember it vividly. They were always trying to play tricks on each other on the set. This was one of the going gags between everybody, was who can one-up one another, particularly between my dad and Bill Shatner. So it was it's just a very memorable experience. I was very excited to be on the set. I was excited about Star Trek, having not seen any episodes, but having seen a number of scenes being shot, and of course my dad being in full wardrobe and makeup. And I remember standing in the turbo lift before they opened the doors, and I went out there, and they gave me some direction. Go give him a kiss and say hello, Daddy. So
Nice.
So I had some idea of what to do, and then when I got out there, it was like, it's so interesting because the set is all lit, but everything else in the back behind the camera is black. And all I could hear was people laughing, and Dad was like, okay, you guys got me. That was, his whole kind of demeanor. You can kind of see that. It's like, okay, I've been one-upped again by the cast, the crew, and Bill Shatner. Very exciting time for all of us, for the whole family, knowing that Star Trek was coming. This is the first co-starring role for my dad as a series regular, the first time ever. It was a great period of our lives.
I mean, did you have a good sense of the show at that time? Because you would have been the right age that, okay, well, this is perfect programming for you. This, science fiction, outer space adventure. So regardless whether or not your father's in it, here's a show that's cool, that is definitely speaking to somebody like you in the audience. Were you able to enjoy it as a fan?
Well, yeah, I was 10 when the show started airing in September of '66. And I was watching a lot of TV. I was really enjoying the golden age of TV. And there was sci-fi on the air. A huge fan of Twilight Zone, Outer Limits. I was watching, interestingly enough, I was a big fan of a serial called Commando Cody.
Oh, yeah.
Which happened to be one of the episodes was Zombies from the Stratosphere.
Yes.
Guest starring Leonard Nimoy as one of the Martians trying to take over the planet and change the orbit of Earth so that Mars could take the orbit over and survive. So, these were things that I was open to, I was interested in, I was soaking up. In fact, there was a movie that came out on TV called, I think it was The Attack of the Brain Eaters, also guest starring Leonard Nimoy. So I was ready for that. I was kind of primed for Star Trek, right, which I'm so grateful for, because I really understood what it mean. I could really appreciate it when it was first arriving. I was just old enough to really get what was happening.
Well, and let's talk about getting what was happening. I mean, what was it all about? The adventure and sci-fi spectacle of it, were you tuned in to kind of the ideas lying behind these stories, the humanity that's baked into Star Trek stories?
I was definitely too young for the philosophy, for what Gene Roddenberry was doing so cleverly, hiding these moral fables of social conscience and topical issues within the context of sci-fi. No, that was definitely over my head. What was appealing to me was, first of all, it was in living color. This is the first season that all three networks were broadcasting all their primetime in color.
Right.
And it's also, I was a Batman fanatic when the show came on, and it was just these these emblematic heroes that looked cool, that were in color, that we could glom onto. That was the thing about Spock that was so interesting to me. He was like, what is this kind of a thing? It's different. He's an outlier. He's a loner. That did appeal to me because I was also kind of outside the popular social circles at school. Spock is different. He's set apart, yet he still wants to be a part of the group. He's an important part of the group. I mean, all of these are the kind of things that appeal to me on a basic emotional level. But I was also a comic book fanatic at this point, huge. And this is the golden age of Marvel.
Right.
So to see an iconic figure, of Spock, the haircut, the eyebrows, the ears, boom, you have Spock. So interesting and fascinating just to look at. And I think that's what really drew me in.
Well, so this must have been a very interesting kind of adjustment for you and for your family, because you say, you're into the pop culture of the time. And just as Adam West, Batman 66 is everywhere as a piece of the pop culture, so then Star Trek in living color, bold comic book style, that's everywhere too. But it's as you said, it's your dad's first co-starring role, and now that's everywhere too. That must have been an interesting adjustment for you.
Well, it was. It had a big impact on the family. I mean, it happened pretty quickly. A lot of attention, a lot of fanzines, a lot of photographers, a lot of journalists coming by. I have so many fanzines of us, stuff that I don't even remember, where photojournalists were coming in and taking pictures of the family. It happened very quickly for us, and it was a big change in our lifestyle. And it was, but I'm really grateful that that I remember a lot of what our life was like before. Because this is the thing about my dad that was always so interesting, is that he always knew where he came from. He knew where his roots were. And I think it really kept him grounded and very earthbound, I might say.
Right.
To be able to put these things in perspective and know that we were in a really special place, that we had a lot of privilege, a lot of opportunity. But also, as my dad, I think, was very intent on teaching us, my sister and I as kids, there also is a lot of responsibility that came with social responsibility, like supporting causes like this. And my dad and my mom were always politically active, always socially conscious of the opportunities that Star Trek brought to them to be able to give back to the community. So yes, our lives changed very dramatically within a very short period of time. The mail alone, because our home address got leaked by 16 magazine.
Oh,
and
no.
the fan mail just started flooding. And I was sending away for Spider-Man t-shirts, which just, I was waiting for endlessly. And we were getting sacks of mail, all addressed to my dad, addressed to Spock. So it was an interesting time.
Okay, now wait, did you get the Spider-Man t-shirt?
I did. It was a size too small.
Okay. Well, look, we'll expense it. We're good for it. I want you to have that, so we'll make that happen. Let me ask you this: something about your father's very interesting relationship with the character, and this is a character that he had the privilege of playing for 30 plus years, and famously, went through a period of his book "I Am Not Spock," and then followed up by "I Am Spock." But every actor has a relationship to a character where they're giving a piece of themselves emotionally, intellectually to that character, but also creating a separation. I'm curious for you, when you see your father on screen, Spock or not, but here we're talking about Star Trek, do you sometimes see through the character and go, oh yeah, that's just totally my dad right there? That is a piece of his personality infused into that character.
Yeah, John, interestingly enough, more often than not, when my dad was at home and I could not figure out what he was thinking, what he was feeling, I would be saying to myself, this is so Spock-like. And it's incredibly frustrating. I mean, sometimes I needed a mind meld to figure out what my dad was thinking. He was a man of very few words. His father was the same way. My grandfather, Max, men of very few words at home. Hard to know what he was thinking. Inscrutable is a word that often comes to mind. So it was, when I was looking at Spock on screen, he's Spock. I mean, my dad had this famous quote where he would arrive at, I think Fred Phillips the makeup artist would say, Leonard Nimoy would arrive in the makeup chair at 6:30. By 7 a.m., Spock would leave the makeup chair. So, I mean, he's
interesting. Yeah.
It's a very, just the look of Spock, it's a very alienated, it's hard to see Leonard and Spock for me. It was very difficult. It was very easy to see Spock and Leonard at home.
Okay. That's fascinating, to coin a phrase. I want to ask you a little bit about getting into directing, because I was very interested to see that Leonard's first directing gig, 1973 on Night Gallery. You and I are both fans of Twilight Zone, definitely fans of Rod Serling and his later work. And then, you fast forward a bit and he's really pursuing directing in earnest in the 80s. Very shortly after, you're kickstarting your directing career in the 90s. And I'm curious, did you two ever talk about approaches, technique, frustrations? Was this something that you looked at that you were doing kind of in parallel, or were those separate worlds?
Well, they were, I was following in his footsteps, really. I happened to be at Universal while he was shooting Night Gallery, and it was a really fascinating experience to see him behind the camera. And all the homework that he had done. I mean, this is a guy who really prepped the work and really knew how to do the work and wanted to do the work. I mean, my dad was a workaholic, and this was, part of the shortcomings in our relationship, that he simply wasn't around that much. But it was really interesting to see how he worked with actors, how he worked with the crew. It was kind of inspiring, even at that stage. It was, I was still very young and not even thinking about that. I was destined for law school no matter what. But just to see his process, I think, was really interesting to me. And I think it's just, my dad was a Renaissance man. He was always trying to find new ways to express himself, particularly creatively. And I think the Night Gallery presented a great opportunity for him to do that. And then he was, he was directing T.J. Hooker and other smaller TV series, I think, all in preparation for really laying the groundwork for a directing career in an attempt to branch out. Because sometimes the acting work is not coming as regularly as you would like, and he was just hungry to continue to work in the industry.
Well, hey, before we kick it over to our interloper, the fabulous John Billingsley, who is here to give us an update on the Hofoco fundraiser, I do want to ask you very quickly about your own charitable interests in the Nimoy Foundation and what's happening there.
Well, I wanted to say that the Nimoy Foundation is supporting the Leonard Nimoy COPD fund at UCLA. My father passed away from complications due to chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, and we're big supporters there. I want the fans to know that. Also, my dad and stepmother were big supporters of Beit Teshuvah. It is a residential addiction treatment center, of which I'm a board member. The fans should know about that. I'm tweeting about it quite often, that we are supporting them. Important to support these organizations at a difficult time. Beit Teshuvah, particularly because of the opioid epidemic and the complications for recovery during this period of the pandemic. The opposite of recovery is really connection and being together, which is much more challenging now. And that was an organization that my dad was greatly supportive of, and that I am now championing.
Excellent. Adam, thank you so much for your time today. Let's hear the update here from John. How's it going?
First off, Adam, thank you so much, and a real pleasure. Thank you so much for making the time. We are now up to almost $27,000, but I also, for those of you who missed it, Rod Roddenberry, in a panel that we just finished, those of you who didn't see it, said he would match up to $30,000 with the Roddenberry Foundation's $30,000. So we are essentially now at around, give or take, $55,000. Every dollar you donate up to $30,000 is going to be matched. So with a couple of hours left, please, if you haven't donated yet, even a small amount or a monthly donation, maybe $10 a month, would make a big difference to the Hollywood Food Coalition. With the remaining 2 hours, ending with Jerry Ryan, get out there and social media the hell out of this so we can get some newcomers coming in for the next 2 hours.
Okay, look, I'll say this. I take back every bad thing I ever said about Rod. That's great of him. And let's make him pay. Absolutely. Let's get that up to 30K. And let's see the Roddenberry Foundation match that. Yes.
And I'm trying to pick up a little bit of time because we ran over with that last wonderful panel before Adam's. So I'll make this quick. We skipped a beat and we did not show a wonderful video about a vaccination clinic we run on our campus as part of our